Good morning, everybody. Thanks again for taking the time to join our construction roundup meeting. We have pretty much the same rules as normal. We will be monitoring the chat for questions, and there will also be a time at the end of the call for questions. We would ask that if you have the availability to go ahead and turn on your cameras. It just makes the meetings more engaging. And with all of that, I think we're going to go ahead and get started, and Brian's going to give us an introduction. Take it away, Brian.
Am I unmuted? Good morning, everybody. Got a couple announcements before we kick off. I know there's been a lot of questions about the legislative updates and the reorganization, and we've received a lot of questions from both sides and industry, and that is all under review from our new secretary, and everything, the status currently is on hold right now. So as soon as we have an update, we'll let everybody know and what direction we're going to be moving. Once we find out, we'll pick up the ball and go from there. For one of us today, this will be their last DOTD webinar. And of course, I'm sure everyone knows that Mike Vosberg is retiring. I would like to personally thank Mike, thank him for his years of service, his leadership, for all he's done for DOTD in the construction section, the construction industry. Mike, wish you a happy and a well-deserved retirement. Good luck, brother. For the rest of us who aren't short timers, we've got some great agenda topics. We're going to kick off today. We've got topics from industry and from the districts, and Matt is going to start us off with maintenance expectations. Turn it over to you, Matt.
All right. So thank you, Brian. Again, I want to reiterate, congratulations to Mike. Job well done. Good, wonderful career here at DOTD. I've joked that, he's leaving a lasting legacy, which is me and Brian. So, that's what y'all get, contractors, PEs, this is the legacy that he's leaving to you. So, sorry, y'all can decide if he's succeeded or failed. But congratulations to Mike. Again, had some topics from industry. From AGC submitted a list of topics, and one of them is specifically project maintenance expectations. So it was, have there been discussions on revising the maintenance requirements for contractors? We are looking at tweaking that slightly, but just to provide some clarity as to what's expected. The specifications, there's really two parts of the specs that kind of talk about maintenance requirements by contractors. 105.15 is specifically the section that talks about maintenance during construction. That's where it talks about, you will need to maintain drainage. You have to mow the site periodically, pothole patching, striping, shoulder maintenance, things like that, that are kind of standard items. But caveat to that is we don't want to go overboard with that. So project engineers, this is the part where we need to set some reasonable expectations. What I'm talking about is if we have directed the contractor, if we've got a sequence of construction that pushes traffic, that shifts it over, and we're now utilizing the shoulder as the roadway, or we have put traffic where the wheel path is directly in the line of the longitudinal joint, and those start unraveling. Maybe the shoulder was not built up with a significant enough structure, and it starts falling apart. That is not something that the contractor should be responsible for. We need to, beef up those sections, go back in, do an overlay, do something like that. Obviously, the projects that we're doing are not because these roads are in wonderful shape. They are, in a condition that are needing to be repaired. So there is some expectation, contractors, that yes, there's some normal potholing, stuff like that. But if it's something that goes above and beyond, that's not what we're intending. Similarly, cold weather expectations, we're not expecting contractors to have to salt the roads or maintain that during winter weather events. That's not the equipment that they have. That's more our maintenance stuff that we have, the salt dogs and things like that to handle those sort of issues. So we don't want that to be pushed off on the contractor. We know that the contract says, look, once the NTP is issued until final acceptance, that's the contractor section of road and they're responsible for maintenance. But again, we need to set some reasonable expectations. 10719 is the other part of the specs that talk about maintenance. That specifically talks about guardrails and impact attenuators and what to do if those are hit. So in there, it talks about, first contractors, y'all need to try to go after the third party, the responsible party's insurance to get reimbursed to make those corrections. But as we all know, sometimes there's folks that are able to drive away from those things and it's a hit and run and we don't know who did it. There's no police report, no insurance, no, signs of who is responsible. And in that case, the spec says 10904 is how we will pay for that. 10904, as everybody knows, talks about our existing items, negotiated prices, or force accounts. So those are the three options we have. If we have those items in there, it should be done by the existing items. If not, we can negotiate a price and or do it via force account to repair that. In line with that, one of the changes that we'll probably be making is to include cable barrier with the guardrail and impact attenuators. Again, that is a similar type of safety function as guardrails. So we want to add that in there that, again, if that's hit by a third party damaged, again, the expectation is for the contractor to go after the third party insurance to try to get that covered. However, if not, we can pay for that via 10904. The only other thing, I mentioned before, if the plans call for us to shift traffic, and the roadway falls apart, that's DOTD should kind of handle that maintenance. If through the contractor's means and methods, if they decide to put traffic on the shoulder, say there's a requirement that the road can't be closed, or you can only have a single lane road closure during these times, but y'all work out, hey, I want to put traffic on the shoulder. If that ends up falling apart because of the contractor's means and methods, that would be something that the contractor should be responsible for.
All right. Thank you, Matt. Our next topic on the agenda are our RFCOs. We've got a couple of updates for you guys. RFCOs are not needed for administrative change orders such as pay penalties, OCP insurance, police, railroad flagmen, or reconciling final quantities. We've had a lot of questions about that, when to use it or not. One of the issues is that on the RFCO, the expectation is that you, the project engineer, reach out to the PM and verify that funding is available for the change. There has been some confusion on that from our PM staff. We reached out to David Smith, our project development division chief, and we're going to put out some direction to all of the PMs across the department that we understand that they cannot make the budget request until the change order is finalized, but we need to make sure that we tag that program director and make sure that those funds are there prior to beginning work. So we are training those guys as well, and you should not have any resistance any longer. Just make sure that you notate that not only did you speak to the PM, but they actually verified that the funding was available. And of course, if you have any questions about these as we go, drop them in the chat, or we can answer them at the end. Our next agenda topic is our SWIP, stormwater pollution prevention, and Dallas is going to talk to us about that.
All right, so SWIP is something that the contractor puts together. We kind of have a master on the intranet that can assist if needed. We also have a form on the intranet for stormwater inspection after an event, or every 2 weeks. The contractor is obligated to inspect the erosion control and inspect after a rainfall event greater than half an inch, greater than or equal to half an inch. So that form is on the internet as well. I've been told there's a form on FieldBook that's also HeadLight. that's also available. So the contractor is contractually obligated to do these inspections, but the PE should also be making sure the erosion control is up to the requirements of the contract. And if it's not up to the requirements, then get the contractor to fix it. Document that you've requested erosion control to be fixed. And if there's a pattern of not fixing the erosion control, that's something that could rise to a level of stopping work on the project until it's resolved. You can also escalate that up to headquarters if you're not getting the appropriate response from the contractor. The contractor is required to submit to the PE every erosion control inspection, and also keep it in the field office in case we get audited by DEQ or some other organization who comes out to the project. We need to have those available. And that's basically the same, other than it's been that way for a while. It's just now the responsibility of the contractor. But do want to say that PE should also be checking up on that. We're gonna move on.
Yep. Thank you, Dallas. All right, our project progress update form that we implemented this last month, we've had some feedback on that. There were some items at the bottom of this form that showed project progress and the list of items. That was just for informational purposes only. The fact that HeadLight and Site Manager are still operating in two different systems, there are going to be discrepancies in that data, and they're not going to tune in exactly on the percentages and the quantity. So we just went ahead and turned that function off for now. So there's no confusion out there, and the PE is still required to do the month and the year, and then put any notes in this form as he does it, at the end of the month for each estimate period, or whenever your estimate period closes. So it's still a requirement. We turn that off for confusion purposes, and if it's something not working, just let us know, and we'll jump on and take care of it. Next slide. We had a couple of questions on our TRO, which is time-related overhead from industry. I'm just going to read the questions and then give our responses. And again, if we have any questions, we can talk about it at the end. If DOTD is going to continue to use TR specifications, can a minimum payment of the full bid amount be considered to allow for early completion of projects without being penalized? So for the pilots and the utilization of the TRO spec as it was intended for the pilots, was that the contractors give us a lump sum price that's divided by the number of days, and we come up with a daily rate. That daily rate is paid for every day that they're out there working, every day that we charge. And then if there's any excusable, compensable delays associated with the project, we pay that daily rate for the TRO for those delays. And the point was that we would not have to negotiate that rate at the time of the change order. It was bid, and it was meant to reimburse the contractor for those time-related costs for each of those days. So to answer the question, the answer is no, not at this time. Similarly, can the DOTD look at the spec and consider adding idle equipment in times of delay to the list of items? So idle delayed equipment is currently covered in our specification. Idle equipment is paid during excusable, compensable delays, which is not the same as our time-related overhead and the costs associated with that. So we do have a mechanism to pay for those, and it's not included. Let's see, we do have a question that was about surface finish on unexposed concrete. The statement was that it seems excessive for such things like footings. Our current specification states that we're to remove fins and irregular projections from all surfaces, clean and patch cavities produced by form ties, honeycombs, and other holes. This is just a class 1 ordinary finish. There is a note in the spec that says on concrete below the final ground line, removal of fins and projections may be omitted. All other patching will be required. And we're not talking about, digging this out and doing structural repairs. We're talking about pinholes, broken corners, edges, defects, things like that. We know this is going to be a section of the structure that's buried, but of course, if there's damage beyond that, then we need to talk to the PE and the contractor and resolve that issue prior to cover it up. But it's just meant to have a class 1 ordinary finish, not go into excessive rubbing. Next slide, please. Change order processing. So we had a question about our change orders. I know this has been on the minds of everyone for the last couple of years now. I think we've been working very well together, and we've got a couple, as a result of this question, from industry, processing of change orders are taking entirely too long. What can be done to expedite? So we pulled the numbers, and I'm gonna ask Les to pull them up for category 1s, 2s, and 3s. So on your slide, you can see various colors at the bottom, the number below each of those. So the one on the far left, this is for July of 2024, and there were 21 category change orders processed that month. The tall red line is from when the change order is created in Site Manager or generated in Site Manager to the time it's changed to pending. And then, of course, each of the following subsequent colors represent the contractor, the PE, the area engineer, headquarters area engineer, chief construction engineer, the chief engineer, and FHWA. So if you follow these lines, and the axis on the left is the average handling time in days. So we were kind of averaging for everyone approving, looks like less than 10 days. And this red line was pretty excessive, upwards of 60, 70 days down to 50. About the time we implemented some of our change order templates, the RFCO process, and a real concerted effort to, review these in a timely manner. And as you can see, other than this one that jumped out for FHWA, that was when they were having there was a lot of changes at FHWA around this time. But other than those anomalies, you can see that this line just trends down lower and lower to where our review times are averaging around less than 5 days per individual at each level. Even the time from generation to sending to pending has considerably dropped over the last 6 months. So if you're having something, this is what the data shows. If you're having something happen other than this, or there's a one-off or something that's an anomaly, just get with us, and we'll reconcile that issue. But from where I'm standing, it looks like what we put in place is working really well. Les, can you go to category 2s? Again, they're averaging all the way back to July of last year for a year, less than 5 days at each station. If you look in the last 3 months, that's down fewer than 2 or 3 days. Pretty good numbers. And again, you see that downward trend of that large red line. And again, that's the time where we were having to negotiate those issues back and forth. And I think the RFCO process has really reduced that timeline, dropping it down to less than 5 days for 35 change orders, in the month in June. So category 3s, please. Again, very similar trends. So if you're having a different experience than that, I need to know about it. Reach out to me. I think the changes we put in place have really worked. But other than that, let me know. Next slide. Falcon. All right, we're going to turn this over to our fearless leader who is leaving, Mike Vosberg.
First, thank you everybody for the comments. Honestly, my tenure here is flown by. I think it hadn't been much of a burden, primarily because of you all. Appreciate everybody's help and collaboration on things, and it's been a pleasure to work with you all, and it'll be something forever I'll treasure working with DOTD. So thank y'all for y'all help, collaboration, being open to thinking new ideas to try to get things done and resolve issues. So I think that's a testament to most people working for DOTD are doing it for the right reasons and have the right mindset. So I do appreciate it, and I thank y'all for y'all cooperation with me in the years. But to get on to this, Falcon, we have some efforts to improve on our process. We have Verdi with PQU is trying to assemble a council, executive kind of council group that meets quarterly to first order of business would be for that council or that group to come up with some guidance for project managers to help them with answering certain questions, help them with the constant struggle of, you know, how much of an error warrants a addendum, you know, things like that. Establish that guidance to give to all the project managers. We have some young project managers. That job has been some of constant rotation in the recent years. So you know, it's been a struggle to try to get good and consistent answers, and we've heard a lot of that from industry and seen a lot of it ourselves. So this guidance is supposed to be developed by folks who have more expertise for those inexperienced project managers to give better answers to contractors prior to bid. They'll also, you know, meet quarterly to help try to and address more complex issues as far as Falcon question and answer session is concerned, and kind of keep that group going. There was some ideas, and I'd like to hear from some of the contractors who would volunteer to be on that council to help with those discussions, if not quarterly, at least from time to time, to try and help give some clarity as to the answers, the questions. I'll just leave that. Y'all can in the chat, you know, if you think you would be willing to volunteer some of your time to meet at least once a year or so to help with giving that guidance and explain some of the problems with that exchange in Falcon, we'd appreciate it. Other than that, I believe that initiative is underway and hopefully will help things. Remember, Falcon is just it is definitely not a perfected tool. It is something to help give some guidance to contractors prior to bid to clarify things and hopefully give the benefit to both the contractor and the DOTD in that bidding process. If something is of a grave error or a certain degree of error, then it warrants an addendum. I think one of the questions, Brian, I don't know if y'all have a list of questions about Falcon that the industry brought up, but I heard y'all say this morning about one of them about, you know, if the question is presented on a project and it warrants an addendum, you know, some of the answers have been coming back from the project managers that yes, an addendum is going to be given out and on that issue. But I believe the question was related to, can you give some details as to what that addendum is gonna address? I mean, my answer to that question is that simply that, you know, a lot of the times, because those answers are required to be turned around fairly quickly, that the full scale of what is going to address the error may not be known. I mean, we don't want to give out, DOTD as an owner doesn't want to give out false information or something that's not been fully contemplated or fully vetted. So I would hesitate in giving guidance to a PM to giving an answer, hey, there's going to be an addendum and this is going to be the correction, because at the end of the day, it may be something different. So that's the risk there in doing that. So I'm not sure if that would be something that would be in the guidance, but if you're concerned about it, you know, volunteer and help meet with the little council we're going to put together to try to give guidance to PMs. And if you can give some rationale as to why that needs to happen or in what manner that needs to happen, we'll be definitely open ears to hear about it and implement it if it's the right thing to do. So I don't know if there's any other questions that y'all had or any other questions from anybody else on the call in respect to Falcon. That's all I had to really offer.
Yeah, that answers all the questions that were submitted, Mike. Thank you.
Okay.
Our next topic is compliance approval. Dallas Balmer is going to talk about that.
All right, so I kind of mentioned last time that compliance is looking to make some changes to the way DBEs are handled, and Miss Roddy is going to make presentations when she's ready towards the end of the year. She'll have all the details. I don't think it's fully fleshed out yet. But one of the changes that is likely going to happen on our side is once we move to HeadLight, compliance will no longer be in the approval of estimates. They will still receive payrolls through civil rights and labor, and they will be reviewing, and the P office will still be reviewing those payrolls. And if there's issues with the payrolls, then that can be addressed separately. Or if the payrolls are not acceptable, then that could impact approval of the estimates. But if that is the case, then that's something we also would like to be escalated, particularly if it's happening often. But I think there's two sides on this. But the other thing that I wanted to mention is that the OMF 1As, which is subcontract forms, will still be required. But what I've been told is there may be some modifications to how DBEs are reported and how DBEs are tracked and submitted. There may be some more responsibility pushed off on the contractors to kind of be aware of who's an approved subcontract, who's an approved DBE subcontractor, and what their responsibilities or what they're approved in, what type of work they're actually approved in. I've been told y'all have access to investigate that on your own. So there may be changes to the DBE reporting required by the contractors, but again, I'll leave that to compliance to report to y'all when they're ready. I think they're still working on it.
Yep. Thank you, Dallas. I was reading the chat. I got distracted. Sorry. All right.
Oh, one other thing I want to say. Thanks, Mike, for everything. You've been great to work with. I worked with you for most of my career, and you've been a big impact on me, so I appreciate it.
Here, here.
Thank you, Dallas.
All right. DBEs. We had a couple questions. Matt's going to talk about that. And then we got a couple more on mega projects affecting program funding, and then our bid list 6 months, 12 months. Matt, take it away.
So we also got this slide up. I'll just briefly talk about this before Matt goes.
All right.
Fiscal year transitions underway still. We've been able to start making payments again. Payments without funding issues have resumed, but if there are funding issues, we may not be able to make payments on those contracts until early August. If y'all are having issues with estimates, please let us know and escalate as needed.
DBE changes. Dallas briefly mentioned this, talking about the compliance stuff. So there are changes coming. What that is, we don't have all the details of that just yet, but the general idea is there will no longer be project-specific DBE goals. It will be a statewide DBE goal. Now, the details of how the department's going to implement that are still being worked out. Compliance is still working on that. I think Ms. Roddy is hoping to have something by either August or September to send out prior to the I think, Fed fiscal year, end in September. So that we will, hopefully have coming up here shortly, but that the generality is that there won't be project specific DBE requirements. So you won't have a 12% goal on your particular project, but there might be overall for the state a 15% goal across all projects that we will have to try to meet on a yearly basis. And of course, contractors will need your help to still make those goals a reality. But the details of it right now are still being worked out. The next slide, I believe, is the mega projects. So there was a question from industry concerning about the funding. So, will the mega projects affect the regular projects that are, to be led over the next 2 years? The short answer to that is no. We did talk to the project delivery chief. Most of those mega projects are funded with one-time special funding sources, things like that. So it doesn't come out of, your overlay, your preservation funds, your capacity funds, things like that, that we have each year. We've got set dollars for, enhancements, safety, all those different things. So those funds will still be the same. We'll still should be letting roughly the same physical number of projects each year. So those mega projects should not affect that. The other thing that industry had asked was about the letting list. So that was modified so that we would be more accurate and provide better information to contractors. It was shortened from a 12-month list down to a 6-month list. That was something that both legislators and contractors were wanting, was a more accurate list. And so the industry has asked if we could bump that back out to 12 months because that is helpful, so they can try to plot out what projects they'll be shooting for, workload, stuff like that, on how to schedule, bid, that sort of thing. And again, the short answer is no, we're not going to do that at this moment. However, the Highway Priority Program is on our DOTD website. You can go to that. It lists out all of the projects that we are anticipating letting each fiscal year. So that's up right now. I think it was updated for March or April, I think is what it is. It lists all projects by parish. So you can go to the DOTD website in the search function. You can just type HPP or Highway Priority Program, and it'll pull up that specific document. And it's 200 some odd pages, but probably within after the first 20 pages, that's where the listing of all the projects that will be let in the next fiscal year are included. And then the listing after that is projects that are in development. So it might be in planning or design and isn't scheduled to be let in the next fiscal year, but will be upcoming. So you can get an idea of the number of projects we have, at least on the books.
Yeah. And Matt, we had asked David to jump on here and kind of explain some of that, but he had another obligation. But just to tell you what he said, he did talk about that cone of uncertainty, much like a hurricane, which there is one coming at us right now. The further you get out past 6 months to 12 months in that cone of uncertainty, we're not as accurate. Bring it back into 6 months, we have a much more control and a better handle on what we're going to let and when. And that was kind of his analogy. So maybe we'll get him on the next one. He can talk about it. So that's the end of our agenda topics and the questions that were submitted. We're doing good on time, looks like. We'll open it up for questions. I think all the questions in the chat have been answered. This is your turn to ask questions, guys and gals. Anything that needs to be clarified, anything that any of our speakers talked about that they want to reiterate. Again, these topics were things that are, happening and front and foremost in our minds at the time. But there's always something that we can look at and fine tune or make better, and we're willing to do that. So just because it wasn't talked about last month or this month, don't be afraid to call us and bring it up. And if you have that question, I'm sure someone else does too. So feel free to send us emails, questions that you have. We recommend that the districts get together and put together a summary of questions from each district. You get that to us at least a week before the webinar. Give us time to put together responses. We've done the same with AGC, and they've submitted a list of questions for this webinar that we've gone over today. If you need further clarification on any of those, reach out to us. Yes, sir.
I'll go. Just had a question about the project progress update form. You also want that for entity projects as well? Is that all active projects?
Yes, all active projects.
Okay, including entity. Gotcha.
Yes. We need to have an estimated date, month and date when that project's going to be done. And again, this information is going to be transferred to our outward facing website so we can give accurate information to everyone out there.
Someone had a question. Is there an update on spec revisions in the virtual spec book?
I can take that, Brian, if you want.
Sure.
So the plan on the updated spec book is still planning to go electronic in 2026. There's a little bit of a delay that we've hit on the promulgation of that spec book, which is being looked at right now. But the idea is to take the already approved special provisions, supplemental specs, and standard specs that apply to all jobs and roll into a new electronic spec book. It'll start 2026, and every even year it'll be posted. Your proposals will have it stamped on it, on the proposal, what the date is being let, the letting date. And then from there, you can disseminate what book is applicable to, what spec book is applicable to you based on a new one being issued every 2 years on even years. So that's really the only update we have, is that the first update in 2026 is going to be all the specs that have already been approved through the old process. The old process is still in play, where you can submit revisions to specs at any time from the section heads through the section heads. Contractors, you can submit them through headquarters construction. They have to meet certain criteria. Things are considered, or things that make our job easier, things that are more efficient, updates for technology and that kind of thing. But the cost benefit ratio of what's being changed is a better benefit to the cost we'll incur. Those kind of things are considered, whether a new spec is going to be submitted and applied, and then it goes through the normal review, and then once the normal review internally to DOTD, and then from there it gets implemented. So there's a flow chart on that I think we've shared with some. We can share with more. Some of that is still pliable because it's the first year in. So anyway, that's the update that I know.
Appreciate that. Any other questions?
Brian, I wanted to add something. I know we're mentioning that this DBE goal change is way off in the future, but let's just say it does get implemented sooner than what we thought. Do y'all suspect that existing projects may still keep their original DBE goal at bid, and it would just be future projects that would go to the new
Yep, that's the intention.
New projects, that was the contract requirements when it's let and bid. So those contract requirements are still in place.
Correct. Thank you, Kevin. I saw there were a couple of contractors in the chat that said they would be willing to join the Falcon group. So we'll reach out to those that put their name in the chat, get you on the list.
So,
Hello, this is
so Barry,
Desmond with East Baton Rouge. My EIs are telling me that they're not on the list for invites for this meeting. Is there a reason the EIs are on or not on the list automatically?
Hey, Brian, I'll take this. So I manage that list, Desmond. It had all of the PE, like our main PE email group added, but it probably does not have all the EIs added. So I will go through and start doing some of that. If you have, and I'm speaking to really anybody on the call right now, if you have people in your group that need to be added, feel free to shoot me an email. I actually had a couple right before the call here. There was a couple in District 7 that were not on the list, and so I went ahead and added them real quick. So anybody who you can think of that needs to be on this, send me their names and email addresses, and I'll get them added ASAP. But I will take it upon myself to go look through and try to find as many of the EIs that need to be added as possible.
so
Desmond, the email lists are, each district, there's a already created list and outlook for PEs, area engineers. There's a district administrator email list. So those are the ones that were incorporated originally. And so as those get updated, because I think each district is supposed to update when a new project engineer is hired on or put into that position. But you're correct. The EIs are not included in that, and I don't think there's a set outlook group for that. So it's difficult to go through the 4,000 emails that are throughout DOTD, but if there's specific ones, certainly send that to us and we'll include them.
Okay, yeah, my understanding is that we do want EIs attending this meeting, though, correct?
Yes, absolutely. Yep. As a matter of fact, inspectors are welcome to attend as well. I mean, this is for everybody.
Sounds good. I'll email
I'll just add that, like Matt said, each district has somebody who manages the email list, and there's nothing saying that they can't add EIs to the PE list. So I would recommend specifically or particularly in districts where you don't have PEs to go ahead and request that person add EIs to that list. So they're included on all the correspondence that PEs get.
That answer all the questions about how to get on the list?
Brian, this is Vicky in District 7. Can you guys send us the list of the contractors that have been invited so we can verify that the correct person with the contractor is getting the email? Is there a way we can do that?
I don't think we have a way to separate out the contractor emails.
Yeah.
We pulled that list in from
Site manager. Yeah, that's the active users. Yeah, that's our active user list in Site Manager. That's coming from those that are approving estimates, I believe, and those are active accounts. That's where we got that list from. So if you are a contractor and you want to add somebody, again, reach out to Les and let him know. But Vicky, other than that, we really don't have a way to police that list.
Brian, I actually think this is a good time we can volunteer everybody to do this for us and help us out. If you are working with contractors, feel free to shoot them an email and let them know about this. If they are not added, send us those names and email addresses also, and I'll get them added to this mailing list. Just
go ahead and query your contractor and ask them, and if they're not, forward it to us and we'll get them on the list. But as far as sending out the full list of email addresses to everyone, Vicky, no, I don't think we're going to do that.
Thank you.
I see there's a couple of questions on TRO and fixed costs handling if time not paid. I think that's better discussed in a smaller platform with a smaller group. We've talked about things like renegotiating the cost. if the contractor is willing to agree to contractually complete the job in shorter time frame, then we can renegotiate those costs and adjust them as such. But I think we need to have that discussion, with AGC and as from an AGC representative, so that we're making sure that everyone gets the opportunity to give an opinion on that matter. So, yes, I hear you, and we can follow up with that, and we're willing, open and willing to talk about it. Like I said, what we put together was for that pilot, and that's exactly what pilots are for, guys. They're so we can test things and make sure they work. So let's set up those meetings, follow up, and discuss those issues. We hear you.
Yeah, on a TRO, Brian, I think you're close to having to be able to have a follow-up on the pilots. I mean,
yeah,
we've bid a few, but we need to get a few along the way, at least one finished, if at all possible. So I don't know how long that's going to take, but
yeah. But before we make changes, yes, I agree. I'm just saying there's already been some issues that have come up, but I think it'd be best if it comes from one source.
We're also still looking for additional projects to pilot TRO on. The ones we had originally earmarked for that, some of them, the letting dates got pushed by 2 years. So we're looking, and I think one actually inadvertently got left off, like it was let without the TRO provision added to it, even though we had earmarked it. So we are looking for additional projects to utilize that on.
Yeah. Check your recent contracts and make sure that the version, the 10904 and the different versions you have, that you fully understand the changes that have been made. If you have any questions about those, reach out to us. And that's for the contractors and for our project engineering staff as well. We've made some changes over the last year, and if it's something that looks different than what you've been doing, give us a call. We'll explain it or do our best to explain it. Really appreciate the participation here on the call, the interaction, the back and forth, the engagement. That's what makes this work. So really appreciate it, guys. We've still got a little time left in the hour. If you just got a hot question, you got to ask it. This is the time.
Hey, Brian, this is Dane Lecoq.
Hey, Dane.
I have a question on fuel and asphalt adjustment. We've been having, I'm not going to say issues, but it's been questioned. If you look at the formulas on it, when the base price index exceeds the monthly price index, obviously that would be a negative value, because at the time they bid it, the price was higher than that month's estimate. But if you look at the formula that's in our spec book and then special provisions, it always will give you a positive answer. So I mean, my 2 cents would be the formula needs to be changed to where the value that it would give you would be negative. That way you would be a lot clearer to pay it as a negative value on those months.
Matt, you want to take that?
I mean, that would require rewriting those reports, since it is an automated feature. And I don't know if Alan, for those of y'all that remember Alan Rush, I don't remember if he wrote that particular script or if it's done by OTS. But
yeah, we will evaluate that and get Patrick to check the math.
Because, well, when you use the calculator in our system, it does give you a negative answer. But when you have to, like, say you're catching up a month and you have to use the Excel version and you just plug in the formula right out the spec book, it will give you a positive answer every time. So obviously they adjusted it when they created the calculator on the internet.
So, this is Vicky in District 7. Check that formula. You maybe have it wrong. It should give you a negative number.
It's on our list to dig into for data governance and cleanup. So I'll bump it up.
All right. Thank you, guys. Appreciate that. All right, we got a good 10 minutes left.
There's a question about the steel index. So the steel index, unfortunately, it can't be done sooner because they are preliminary numbers. That's coming directly from the Department of Labor. They set it for 4 months as preliminary. That's actually why the specification says you only do the steel index adjustment at the end of the project. So it's not a monthly deal like you do with fuel and asphalt and all that. And it is a bit more cumbersome because you got to go back and look at either when the stockpile was done or when the items were installed to do that calculation. But it is supposed to be done at the end of the job, you know, preferably once those numbers are set to the permanent one rather than the preliminary number. And that's also why there was that caveat for 120 days that the project had to be over that in order to utilize the steel index, so that hopefully we would have the permanent numbers.
And that's coming right from the website. So we have no control over that.
But it's mad too. I've discussed that with y'all about a year ago on a bridge project. The last thing you do is, you know, guardrail. It's got an adjustment. So if I do guardrail and I'm done with the job, stripe it, it's 4 months before I can do a change order to get a permanent number.
If it's something that's installed at the end of the project, I would say go ahead and use the preliminary number. The numbers don't change that much. I don't know if anybody's paid that close of attention to how much it fluctuates, but I mean, we're talking it's $3, $5, something like that. It's not large values, and that's, you know, $5 per ton is what it ends up being. That's what the index is, what it's related to. So it's not, it couldn't be a large change, even if, you know, the permanent number.
Sometimes it seems like it costs more to do the change order than the actual adjustment. You know, it is so small.
Right. And that stemmed from when we had and it was a 200% price increase back, you know, 2022, after COVID, when all those prices shot through the roof. That was the reason for implementing the steel price index. At this point, they've been fairly straightforward. I mean, there hadn't been a lot of fluctuation. So, you know, we can talk to industry about, you know, possibly doing away with that. But that was, you know, a request back when COVID hit, when, like I say, if you look at the index from, you know, 2020, and then 2022, it jumped up 250%. So it was a significant increase.
Yeah, we haven't had very many requests for the steel index. Anything from, we've been talking about construction, anything from the materials side? I don't think our materials engineer is on the call, but I know we had a couple of issues that we'll be talking about. They were brought up. We'll talk about on our next webinar, which is about our TRs and when we follow them or not follow them correctly, and what happens if that's the case, providing the curing chamber and the consequences of that. So if you have any questions about that and which spec you have in your contract, how it's applied, send those questions in. If you have any recommendations, send those in. We'll be addressing that on the next webinar. Just kind of a heads up. We didn't have everything in place to discuss it today. Any other topics for next time? Again, reach out to us, send it to us. If you need an anonymous way to do that, we can look at setting something up in that case too. If that's something of interest, let us know. All right, 5 minutes left. Participants start to drop off. That tells me it's time to go. One last call. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. All right, guys. Thank y'all. Great talk. Enjoyed it. See you next month. Mike, congratulations. Gonna miss you, buddy.
Thanks, everybody. Appreciate y'all. Y'all made it easy.